That's
All
right.
right, all right, everybody. Welcome to another web chat. This is our first Google Hangout that we've done since the national conference, and really excited today. We've got Mike Arias joining us, Hall of Famer Mike Arias joining us from the University of Texas. Mike, glad that you were able to join us. I know we had a couple technical difficulties yesterday, but we're glad you could join us today.
Sounds great. Appreciate you. Thank you. Great to be here. And any questions that you guys have out in the audience, just go ahead and fire them up. And if I can't answer them, we'll find somebody that can.
Mike, why don't you tell us how you got started at the University of Texas? I think you've done it a couple times in the past, but why don't you tell us how you got started with UT and with video and athletics at UT?
Well, I had my own business, and I was out as a consultant, not in AV, but in the financial world. And my precious wife decided that I had traveled enough, and so I stopped doing that and needed to go find a job and applied here. Came in and spoke with David McWilliams, who was here when I played here, and he basically looked at my resume and said, "You can do anything you want to do." And I said, "Pretty much." And he took me down to a little bitty room full of racks and computer systems and VCRs and all kinds of stuff. And he said, "If you can run that, it's yours." That's how I got in it in '88.
So you've been doing it since 1988. You were in the Big Eight. You've been,
No,
I guess,
I was always in the Southwest Conference.
Southwest Conference. I'm sorry. You've been around a few people there. You know, some quote unquote legends in their own right with Fred Vint, and I know you've been around Jumbo for a while. And well, why don't you tell us a little bit about those days? What kind of equipment you're using? Um, Maybe a little bit of how things used to be as far as some of the video equipment goes. I know, especially this year when I was at the conference, there are so many younger people, and I say that loosely because I'm 32 myself. There are so many younger people that don't understand what it was like before it was digital.
Well, we started out when we finally went video. We were working with KY15s, which are JVC units. The JVC 810s and 610s were your editors and slave machines. And we were running Lexicon as our interface in order to control the decks. And Lexicon was kind of one of the first ones that had a football system out there that you could at least get information loaded in and do cut-ups from on a tape-to-tape basis. So that's where it all began, and that's where you actually learned how to run cameras. Today, you get the camera out of the box, you can go shoot. And back then, you had to know what you were doing. You had to understand what a pre-roll was, what a post-roll was, how long it took to eject tapes, set white balances, set gamma. You had to set everything. You had to do everything with the camera in order to make it work and to shoot pretty pictures. You had viewfinders on those. They were big box things, and they were in black and white. So even zebra bars look funny on it. So if you could even figure out how to get zebra bars out of the KY15 to show up on them, you could actually look at it and get an idea. You have to go play with it to really figure out really what you're shooting. Just a second. This Mike.
Hey, Mike, Mary Show. How are you?
Hey, Mary, how are you doing?
I'm good. Are you going to you call in to the call?
Go ahead and give me that number.
Okay.
I'm on a webcast right now. I'm talking with a counterpart from Minnesota.
Do you want me to? Is there a time later that I can push this to?
Can we push it to around 3?
3 o'clock your time. I cannot do it. I could do a 3. Let's see. My engineer's not available. Available at 3:30. I mean 2:30 your time.
Okay.
One of the hours here.
Well, we'll know where we stand at 2:30, and I'll call you.
Okay, I'll resend this meeting invite for 2:30.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay,
And
thanks.
then it'll have the call-in information, okay?
Yes.
All right.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Okay, that's level 3, by the way. That's VivX level 3. And we're looking at putting in, 2 of their, or actually 3 of the level 3 connections, and going to their POP and sending it out HD to the world, or whoever's, paying to get it done. But let's get back to that topic. We've got so from there we went to M2 decks, okay, where we had cameras, and M2 was a broadcast standard for Panasonic at that time, and we had field decks, big cables to connect them all together, and everything else worked pretty good. And we actually ran those cameras for 10 years, and till finally you couldn't get them fixed anymore. So that's when we went to DVC Pro, again a Panasonic product, and ran those for 5 to 10 years. And now we're running the Panasonic 160s. So that's a quick version of the transition from tape to digital media to SD cards, ingesting versus real time, watching an hour of tape, meaning an hour of record time. That was real time, and now you can get an hour's worth of tape in minutes or seconds. So that is the real thing that's really changed. The editing system's changed the most. The old lexicon system, in order to use the lexicon system, you had to run through a SMPTE encoder first to put, BITSY on a COM track, which is a communications track, an audio track, and that's how you read it. Okay, so you had to run your tape first and get that on there. Then you went back and marked it, and then you loaded your data, and then from there you did your edits. Now it's all totally different. You don't have to do any of that. In fact, we don't even use time code anymore. So at this point in time, you go ahead and ingest your video, clean it up, do what you got to do a quick intercut, and it's out there on the system. We probably finished practice, if it was over at 6, we're probably done with practice 15 minutes after practice, where
Sure.
everything's in the system, everything's out there. We use fiber connectivity between our practice fields and us. A single mode goes through Dell 6224 switches, and we ingest it actually ingest it from the practice field back into our servers here. And here I sit in here, and as it shows up, I clean it up, intercut it, and put it out.
So are you live marking and capturing live, or are you?
No, we did that, okay, and it becomes, especially in a game situation, you've got to communicate back and forth with your camera people to tell them you're out, tell them you're in, or you just mark it that way. You could do it. It just means, we did it, but I don't like it. It's okay. And for some people, it's real good. For some people, they really love it and do it that way. All of our cameras, we see every one of our cameras in the stadium. We can see all the cameras out there at the practice field. But live capturing becomes a little bit problematic when you only have one person in the office. So, but I'm not down, knocking live capturing, because I think it's pretty cool. We just don't do it.
Sure. I've visited you, and you've always been great on hospitality. What would you say the biggest thing is, as far as not necessarily hospitality wise, but as far as if you're the home team, what do you think you should provide? I'm not saying all the bells and whistles, and you do a great job there. You always have food in your office, and you're always offering, giving people a hand, and your scoreboard's about 1,000,000 feet tall to get on top of for the end zone shot. But what would you recommend, especially, even middle level schools, your MAC and Mountain West schools and, 1AA schools, as far as what would you recommend to the home video coordinator, as far as maybe meeting a guy or something like that at the locker room?
I think being the home team, you should be hospitable to anyone that comes into your stadium. I don't believe in having, I can't compete on the field with you. I can't compete video wise with you. It just doesn't work that way. Our jobs don't function that way. And to give everyone the ease of mind, the help they need to get their job done and do the best they can do for their coaching staff is always our goal. We don't look at it as competition between one school and another. We're all in the same boat. I may have a camera go down and have to use your SD card in order to capture some information or ingest some information that we need, and vice versa. And I think every one of us have gone through that. And if you don't have a good relationship or a good partnership with the people that come in, and you don't communicate and collaborate with them, then you may not get that. You may not get that hospitality back from them, as far as them giving or that need back to you when you're asking for something from them. So to me, the best way to handle anyone that's coming into the stadium is to treat them like your kids. You're going to take care of them. You're going to feed them. You're going to do everything you can to make their stay as enjoyable as as possible when they come into your stadium.
Sure. And I know we treated us well when I was down the one time with Nebraska. Shoot, you had hamburgers and chips in your office. I know we forgot a tripod plate, and I think you had about 18 different types of tripod plates. And the last tripod plate we had, or that you had there, it ended up working out, so we were able to use your hi-hat because for whatever reason we forgot ours. And sometimes I guess that's just the way it kind of goes down.
All of that happens. I mean, you're going to have things that occur that are due to Murphy. So you just try to be as accommodating as you can and take care of people, and hopefully it's reciprocal, that you get that back in return when you go to their stadium. So that's what our goal is to be as accommodating as possible, take care of people, help them through the day, and then after the day is over with and they need help, we've loaded trucks for them before. So we're not above anyone. We're equal par with anyone that walks into the stadium.
What's your you like you said, you've been around since 1988, so it's been a little while. So it's 27 years this year.
28 years.
28 years. So I'm betting you've had some near disasters. What's the biggest near disaster that you've had that you've been able to recover from, and kind of whether it's been game day or at practice or maybe a hotel incident? What's the biggest near miss that you've had?
Shoot, I got so many stories. We could be here an hour. Some of the stuff that happens, you just don't think would happen. We've had some real characters work here, students that were pieces of work. They were funny. They were great. They did a good job, but sometimes they did some, irregular things, and you had to recover from it. But I would say, and every time that we've had an issue, we've had people that helped us through it. I remember a bowl game that we went to, and for some reason, I always made our tapes separate. Okay, so you had your first quarter, your second quarter, end zone, sideline, and you had it all broken out. Well, I left those at home. Okay, so we're sitting there, and we're at the bowl game and everything else, and we're about to go to the stadium, and I said, "Oh, go check the trunk over there, and let's grab our game tapes and get going." And Bob kind of looks at me and goes, they're not in here. I said, "Oh no," but luckily the nice thing is that we were shooting that that variety was M2, so we just went ahead and just used practice tapes and just wrote over it, and were able to recover from it. That was probably the worst thing that's ever happened that I can think of right now, that actually could have thrown a big snafu into everything. Because at that time M2 wasn't it wasn't something that everybody used. You know, so some people were still shooting on Super VHS, some people were shooting Beta, and some people were shooting M2. But you know, it wasn't something that you could go to the next video guy and say, you know, you got some extra not used M2 tapes. You know, you just couldn't get away with that. So that's probably the worst that I've ever seen or ever had happen to me. But I can tell you some stories of how we help people recover from a lot of different things that happen. For one case, Chad Bunn, we were at BYU, and it rained. So I thought I thought there was a tornado. I mean, it was bad, and it went for like 30, 45 minutes. And we're sitting there, you know, and we're done with what we need to do, and we're just kind of watching the weather. And the guy that was shooting the video for him came running in, and he goes, "Can we get your end zone?" You know, and I was like, well, "Yeah, you know, yeah, sure, you know." And I said, here's the SD card. I said, you know, go ahead and ingest it from there. I said, you guys are a little bit different because you're running a different type system, but here it is. And you should be able to ingest it and make it work. And he looked at me and he goes, you'll give me your end zone? And I went, sure. You know, yeah, I mean, yeah, just bring it back. That's all I care about. You know, just so we can have the master. And he came back and was just so, you know, I mean, just, you know, gracious about it, and said that, you know, he didn't think that we would give it to him. And I was, you know, just kind of floored by that, you know, that someone, even though, you know, they're out of conference, they're a great football team, you know, great program, you know, and you're sitting there going, well, why wouldn't I give it to you? You know, why wouldn't I help you? And, you know, so those are the things that I'm referring to as being hospitable when people walk in, and being nice to them, and not because you have to, but because you want to, because it's the right thing to do.
Sure. You know, I just to kind of echo a little bit off of that, I had we were down playing Clemson when I was with Nebraska. We were playing Clemson in the bowl game, and Rick Bagby said, "Hey, for whatever reason, I don't have this, that, or the other for my season. I've got a coach that's going to do an interview somewhere. Can you give me this film at the bowl game? That'll work. Can you bring the files on a SAT pack and give them to?" I was like, "Of course I'll give them to you. I got no issues, you know, sharing with you." And you know, it's one of those just kind of one of those deals. And near misses for me. We were at Colorado in 2007, and we had a computer and a projector stolen out of the meeting room during dinner. And this is in the early days of Huddle, and we were able to get a connection with Huddle. And I think the hotel provided us with a backup projector, and we were still able to you know, soldier on. You know, that side of the ball was still able to watch film.
Yeah, that's not a good feeling.
It's one of the worst feelings in the world. It's not, you know, not one of those things you ever want to do ever again. And after that time, I don't know how a lot of other people do it, but I set up the two students that I travel, and I know you guys do things a little bit different at Texas also, but I set the two students we travel. They sit outside of our meeting rooms until the meal time's over, to make sure that from the time that we get to the hotel and set up, their only responsibility on Friday night for 3 hours is to sit outside the meeting rooms to make sure nothing gets taken.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a precaution that you have to take. I can remember it's a Cotton Bowl game. You know, it's Dallas. We're playing Oklahoma, and we had meetings in the morning. It was an early game. It was a 2:30 game, and so, you know, we come down, you know, are messing around and everything else. And I thought, well, I'll just go check the meeting room, you know, make sure everything's good. You walk in there and everything's gone. Chairs are gone. Your video system's gone. Everything's gone. And I remember I kind of turned, looked at Bob, and said, I think we got an issue here. And I said, this room is clean. I said, did we move rooms? And I was going, I know. So we got in touch with the hotel people and said to them, okay, first of all, we have this, and through this time, you need to get this room set up. You need to get me in touch with your whoever took the video stuff out of here. And we went into, and they had it all locked up, and we got it, rolled it back out, got the screen back up, had everything set up before the team ever showed up, back in place, everything working. But those are the things you have to deal with, and it's going to happen to you. You're gonna walk down there, and you're going to think you've got everything ready to go, and before you know it, you walk into the meeting room and it's gone. All the chairs are gone. That happened to us at the bowl game. We walked in and all the chairs were being stacked into the back, and luckily they hadn't touched any of the video equipment or any of the screens we had set up. And we kind of looked at the guys and said, we got a meeting in here in about 20 minutes. We need to get all these chairs back. And Bob and I and their crew, we got to, we just worked together, got everything moved back in, got all the chairs set back in. When the team showed up and walked in, it's like nothing happened. Okay, but it's always good to go down. I think the point here is to go down and make sure that no matter what, that everything is still in place, still where you wanted it, still working. Always test it to make sure everything's going to be taken care of. That doesn't mean that something won't mess up. All that means is that when you last tested, you knew that everything was perfect and everything was working the way it was supposed to work. But always count on Murphy, because Murph will jump and bite you, and it'll happen.
What are some systems that you've put in place? And what I say by systems, I'm not talking about XOs or anything like that. I'm saying, what are some redundancies that you've put together, or some backups that you've put together to kind of CYA to help make you and your department successful over the 25 plus years that you've been doing this?
The one thing that we do is we always do a quality review. Every morning when I come in, the first thing I do is check every meeting room and make sure everything is working, everything's running. Check the lamp light, the light that's left on the lamp. Make sure the PCs are communicating correctly with the network. I check everything, and that's just a habit. I've done that ever since I got into this thing, and that way I know that if a coach goes down there or anyone goes down there and watch the video, they're prepared and everything's ready to go. In the staff rooms and the coaches' offices, we'll go through and check those on not a daily basis, but probably 3 times a week, just to make sure that if the coach needs to get in there, he can do what he needs to do. Okay, that just adds a comfort zone. Okay, it doesn't mean that something won't go wrong, but it adds a comfort zone. For remotes, the wired remotes, the Westies, we always have extra ones all over the place. So if something happens, somebody comes out and says, my remote's dead, we walk in and replace it. Okay, so we try to anticipate what we think mechanically will go wrong and fix it right then without having to run around and try to figure out what's going on. We always have at least one laptop and one desktop on the shelf. So if one of them goes down, we can replace it, and then we get the other one fixed. So those are some of the key things that we do.
Sure. Do you do anything as far as for, say, travel? Do you bring a spare projector? Do you bring a spare camera? Do you bring extra SD cards? Anything of that nature?
All of the above. Okay, we're always redundant as much as we can be. Okay, so instead of traveling 2 cameras, we travel 3. We have people that we travel 4 students with us. So if I even think, okay, and this has happened. If I even think there's going to be something wrong with the camera, when we crank it up and for some reason it's doing what it's supposed to do, that it just didn't feel right, you get that feeling, and we'll go replace that camera. Okay, we'll do it right then. We won't wait. And all of our guys are the same way. But we pretty much travel redundant all the time. At the hotel, usually we have the hotel supply the projectors, and they know that they're supposed to have one in, and I check that when I walk in the door. There's supposed to be another one available at our beckoning call to replace out and make sure everything goes smoothly for the coach. So sure. We do all kinds of junk.
Yeah, I've had that camera issue happen before at Iowa State. It was not a fun feeling 10 minutes before the game trying to wade through the crowd to get back to the sideline where we had our spare camera right behind the bench, and to run back up and through the crowd, through the crowd, past modal, and and to make it back and get it hooked up with less than a minute to go on the clock, and get it all hooked up and working. But it's happened, and I guess it's just one of those things that you just got to deal with sometimes. But I think having things centrally located is a good thing, especially especially if you're in an area that you don't know that well.
Yeah, if you're not redundant, then you walk into a situation where you lose something, and it's important to the coaches that's up and running. Then you're in for the wrath at that point in time. Okay, but if you are redundant and you run out, we travel. If we have 2 PCs for the actual meetings, then there's a third one and all 3 of them look alike. Okay, we don't differentiate between offense or defense. We are special teams. Everything is loaded alike, so anyone at any time can be replaced, and you don't have to worry about what you have on it. So when we check them out, they're all the same, and that's a key factor too.
Sure. Yeah, I'm right there with you, except I think we have 5 meeting rooms going on at once at a hotel, so no matter home or away. So I travel three backups, including my quote unquote master editor for the weekend. But I do the exact same thing you do as far as computers go.
Yep.
So I'll ask you 2 more questions, and then I know you've got something coming up here in 2 minutes. But I know that you had a near miss and a little bit at Kansas State this last year. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
At K-State?
Heard you had to climb up into a scoreboard.
Oh yeah. Well, that's actually the nice thing about being in a scoreboard. Okay, and we filmed from the scoreboard for a long time when we had this Sony board up here. Is that if it's cold, it's heated. Okay, but if it's hot, it's also heated. Okay, but usually when we play K-State, and Scott's a great guy. He helps you. He does everything he can. I mean, he's great. But I don't mind crawling into a scoreboard at all, especially when it's 5 degrees or 30 degrees or whatever, because I'm looking for a warm spot. Okay, that's just the way I am, and so if I can get in a scoreboard and get close to those heaters, which means the cells that are actually heating up to show the game, I'm in hog heaven. Okay, so I really I don't mind crawling into a scoreboard. I mind being on the sideline out in the open with 15, 20 mile an hour wind hitting you at right at freezing, and then have to recover from it. I decided I wouldn't do that ever again. Okay, so usually is what happens is when I've done that a lot, but when we go to a game and it's freezing, and I love the end zone. Okay, for some reason I just always have. I can shoot them both, but when I get out there and you're in the open and it's freezing, I usually move another guy over there, and I move to the sideline where I can be close to a door that I can go inside and get warm. So that's just the way it works.
Sure. Yeah. No, I heard that your student's plane was a little bit late.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it was actually pretty funny, because at that time a lady named Haley was working for us, and she did the end zone, and and the sideline was done by a couple other guys, and so I'm up there filming, okay, because I'm sitting there going, hey, this is great. I haven't filmed in years, and I was having fun and everything else, and she came running up there and crawled up that ladder and got in there, and I thought, I was like, you just settle down, she was winded. I mean, she was a real conscientious worker and did a great job for us, and I said, just settle down with me. I'll film. Don't worry. I've done this many, many times. And I said, in fact, I'm kind of enjoying this, because it was fun. And so, I filmed most of the first quarter. And then she kept giving me that look like, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. So I got her, I said, okay, first quarter's just about over with. You can get back on the camera, and I'll start working on my side of it, and getting the laptop updated and communicate with Bob to make sure we're on the same page, and to swap hard drives, and do everything, get everything set up. So you're good, Haley. Go ahead and do it. But they did. It was fogged over, and in K-State, in Manhattan. And they wouldn't fly out of Austin until that fog lifted. So, or they got word that it was going to lift. So that's how they were able to get out and get in. But it worked out good.
Last thing is, this was from Facebook from earlier, and you and I chuckled about this yesterday. John Kavadik says, please ask where the best place is to get breakfast tacos in Austin. I know he knows.
I can tell you what, some of the best places that you can get are the little shacks, okay, the little bitty places that sell them on campus. They've got some of the best breakfast tacos that you could ever buy. Now, I don't know if you'll ever be here when one of those are open, okay, but they have some of the best breakfast tacos. There's one right here on the corner every morning. They have breakfast tacos ready to go, and you can stop by there and pick them up for about $2.50, and they're excellent.
Great. Well, hey, Mike, I really appreciate it. I know I heard you said you got a 2:30 call here. If there's any last parting words that you have, and we could jump on and do this at another point too, but if you got any parting words for today, go ahead.
Well, I appreciate being on here, and thanks, guys, for listening to me. And if you get a chance to watch this, call me with any questions that you might have. And Matt, thank you for coordinating this and getting it all done.
Thanks, Mike. I appreciate it. And we'll try to do another one of these soon with yet another one of our colleagues. Thanks, Mike. We'll talk to you again soon.
Thank you.